Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on the 2025 Barlow Bearcat Club Great Eastern Cutlery Club knives. And so really it's these two knives here. And just kind of looking at them, talking about the process a little bit. So if you're in the club, you know that these knives are in the hands of club members already, so that they're not available to purchase. There's probably going to be some traded or sold within the club and things like that. But basically what I'm saying is don't join this club just to try to buy one of these, please. But I wanted to make a video on them and kind of show them off and again talk about the process. So first of all, it's been different each year how the process has gone for getting a club knife from Great Eastern Cutlery. This is the third year that we've gotten a club knife, and it's been different each time. This one was, I kind of knew that these 86s were coming, and we were offered a club knife on this pattern a while back, like at the beginning of the year. And I knew that they were going to be 86s and stainless, and that there were going to be 3 different blade shapes, and we had to choose which blade shape so that they could punch out the blades. But then there was a long stretch of kind of no new information, and then we went and visited, me and Alex, one of the officers of the club, went and visited and kind of talked with Bill and figured out what covers we were going to get. And there were, we ended up with 2 for the purposes mainly of one, making it so that there's a less expensive version, like a more, budget friendly. I mean, they're still over $100, but more so than the normal versions. And then also, because honestly, we thought it would make it so that more people could get them. And I'll talk about some of the things that didn't go the way as planned, or didn't go as planned. Also in this video. But then there was another kind of long stretch, and they kind of started to give some information and they became available. So I'll show you the write-up that I came up with on the back here, just kind of talking about Barlow's and the 2 different versions and things like that. But the 2 versions are a smooth emerald green bone, and so this was inspired by, there was a number 35, I think it was a Churchill, but it was definitely a 35 that they had as a special factory assembly at the 2023 rendezvous, I believe. And then there's this black checkered Delrin version. So again, these, so the previous club knives were $150. I was able to make this one $130, so a little bit less expensive than the previous ones. And then this one was $160. So I was happy with that, with how I was able to price them and make it a little bit less expensive for that one and everything. But 2 different versions here. And so you can see they are an 86 Barlow, what was originally called the 2AB Barlow, but then for this run, let me see if it says it on here. It actually doesn't say it on the normal run tube, I don't think. But they called these the Boomtown Barlow. And so the 86 stainless 2AB is probably, I think, my favorite or the best user GEC. I really like stainless. You can use the knife and not worry about losing the etch. And just generally not worry about it getting rusty and stuff. I know a lot of people really like patina, but I like stainless steel. And then clip points, they've done a bunch of 86s. Bill actually told me at one point that the 86 was his favorite pattern to do. They've done a bunch of them, but fewer, clip points. So we went with clip point. Would have loved to have had 2 different blade shapes, but it didn't work out that way. What was I talking about there? So yeah, 2 different versions, and the Delrin and then the smooth bone. Now, when I went to release these, I tried really hard to make my site as optimized as possible, and I don't think I did a good job of it. In fact, I think in trying to do that, I messed something up on the back end that caused a redirect loop. I think it was the problem, but basically, when I made these available to club members, my site completely failed. I actually had to create a whole new site on Shopify, which ended up working well. So that was a stressful Sunday afternoon for me, and I think for a lot of other people in the club, but it ended up working out, again, with some lessons learned. But in looking at all of these, we got 150 knives. I was really impressed by the fit and finish. I didn't really notice any major issues. Now, I did have 2 of them get kind of returned and exchanged. I was able to exchange them because I had kept a couple back because of some blade play. I didn't notice it when I was going through them, but then I did when they returned them. So it's not like, like I just didn't notice it, But it is like I just didn't notice. It's not like they were like making up the blade play or something like that. I just don't always notice everything when you're going through a whole bunch of knives. But they were really nice fit. Like, didn't really notice any gaps. Some maybe slight gaps from the bolsters to the covers, but less than I would say is normal. And then the action was nice on all of them, in my opinion. They were all pretty well centered, and no blade wrap that I noticed, which is always, of course, nice. And the tips set pretty nice and low too. So really nice overall. Now, the green bone had a lot of variation in kind of the darkness and how much green there was. But I think they were really kind of all nice. Honestly, I didn't really see any that I would have been unhappy with if I got it myself. And I didn't like pick for myself the best knives. I wanted to get number 86 just because it's the pattern number, and then my member number is number 1. So these are the 2 that I went with. I picked them before I actually looked at them. But the bone was really, really nice, and kind of unique within GEC's bone colors. And then this was actually, I think, the first time they did checkered Delrin specifically. They've done other checkered knives. Now, one thing is that about 2/3, I think, I actually counted, and I think it was about 2/3 of these Delrin knives had a fuzzy texture to them. And Joan May at GEC actually said how she liked it, how they turned out. They had like a velvety feel to them. Now, I will say it's not really what I expected, and it's not really, I think, what most people would expect from a checkered, texture or finish. In looking at all of them and kind of looking them over and stuff, I think probably what happened is they just didn't get cut quite as deep on some of them. Maybe there were variations in the thickness of the material or something along those lines. But basically, if you look at mine here, you can see that there's kind of shiny flats across the checkering, whereas on the ones that didn't have fuzziness, it didn't have that. They came to more of a normal like point, like normal checkering that you might see. And so I don't know, I'm not a knife maker or engineer, and so I don't want to be a critic too much, but basically about 2/3 of them had like that finish that wasn't quite really what I was expecting. And so I actually tried to get rid of the fuzziness on mine. I used a razor to cut down through the checkers, and it did pretty well. There's still some fuzziness, but it's a lot less. Now, some of them didn't have any fuzziness at all, like I say, about 1/3 of them. So some people, got those, and people were pretty okay with it. I mean, I think that there was some, surprise, maybe disappointment in the finish, but overall, people were really, happy with them, I think. And I want to say that overall, in general, for the club knives this year, again, I didn't do everything perfectly, and I learned a lot from it, but people were generally super gracious and nice to me in the club, which is not a surprise. The members of the Barlow Bearcat Club are super, it's a great group. I don't really know how it happened, because I don't think I have done that much to I don't know. I try to encourage a lighthearted nature, but we've just been really lucky, and probably the other officers have done much of it too in cultivating a positive environment. But people were generally really gracious with the fail of my website for the first drop, and then again some of the issues like the finish, and then other things that I'll talk about now. So the other thing is I made it so that you could pick your serial number, and that caused a lot of like if you picked the serial number, put it in your cart, and then someone else checked out with that serial number before you did, you couldn't check out. You had to go back and like pick a different one. So it caused a lot of like hassle in the checkout process. And that's not to mention the fact that in order to allow for proxies, and honestly, frankly, because I didn't think that these would sell out that quickly, like I thought that everyone that wanted one would be able to get one, being that we had 150 of them. I made it so that members could buy one of each cover, and that also caused it so that some people probably who wanted one didn't get one, and also so that, you know, there was just issues with the checkout. Now, I will say that they lasted, I think, on the second drop, the successful drop, I think somewhere between like 5 and 10 minutes. So it was not as fast as your typical GEC drop. Most GEC drops last, you know, a minute, maybe up to 5 minutes, but these lasted a little bit longer. So it wasn't the hardest GEC drop out there by a long shot, but I learned a lot. I would say next year, if we're able to get a GEC club knife for the Barlow Bearcat Club, it will be one knife per person for like a set amount of time, like a day or something like that. It will also just be one version, not two versions, and probably kind of stick with maybe not an experimental cover like the checkered Delrin. We've had experimental covers on the last 2 years. So 2024, this is one of the 2024 knives. It was a G-Carta that Bill had attempted to use in a certain kind of format to mimic some of the old stacked celluloid handles, and had trouble, and then did it in a different variation for our knives. So this is actually, I'm just showing you this because I got this year. One of our members, David V, who does really cool blade deletes and recovers for slip joint knives, traditional knives, pocket knives. I actually, at the 2024 rendezvous, after all of the 2024 club knives had been sold and everything, Joan May, I believe it was Joan May, said at the rendezvous, said, "Hey, we found another one of your club knives. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Well, yeah," you know. So I bought it from them, and it was an S model, and again, everything had already been sold. So I was trying to think of like, how should I, you know, use this? And also at the 2024 rendezvous, Bill mentioned that he had some of the leftover kind of almost prototype material for, you know, trying to use the G-Carta as horizontal stacks, right, rather than vertical stacks. And I asked if I could have them, and he said yes, and I sent them to David V, and he ended up making a couple tube poppers. I actually gave two tube poppers from the G-Carta. I gave both of those away to club members, and then he made this, which is that S model club knife recovered in the horizontal G-Carta. So I just wanted to show this here just for fun. So there it is, really cool looking. Definitely does mimic that old celluloid, if you've seen those, the vintage knives that have that horizontal celluloid, and it's a really cool look in my opinion. I think he did a good job. You know, this is actually, no, I had some recovers done by Birdvis knives way back, but I'm not a big recover person generally, but it's really cool. You can see I put a whole bunch of I think that's Wicked Wax, maybe, probably, on there, but really cool. And just wanted to show this, just kind of an interesting thing. And so yeah, another interesting kind of saga in the Barlow Bearcat Club history, the annals of the Barlow Bearcat Club. So if you got a club knife, I hope you love it. If you didn't get a club knife, I hope you're able to get one, you know, as they become available in the Discord and everything. Again, I've learned a lot from this year, so next year I hope will go more smoothly. But if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave any comments below, subscribe to the channel, click the bell and select all so you know when I post new videos. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.